Let's bring in our panel now. Yusuf Adim, TRT's world editor at large, joining us live from Istanbul, and Dr. Sinan, Ciddi, senior fellow at the Foundation for Defense of Democracies and an expert on Turkish domestic politics and foreign policy. Thank you both so much for being with us. Yusuf, let's begin with you. The Turkish president, in an interview with TRT in Turkish, saying that the, quote, individual was neutralized as part of an operation by the Turkish National Intelligence Organization. Talk to us about what kind of message Erdogan is trying to send just 2 weeks before elections, carrying out an operation like this.
Well, it's a very strong message when we look at the past operations against terror targets, especially high-value targets inside of Syria. We've generally seen these targets neutralized by drone strike, but this was directly an on-the-ground Turkish intelligence operation, so a much more daring operation than those in the past, showing that Turkey gets very good intelligence on the ground in Syria, and that it does have the capacity to take out high-value targets. And heading into elections, it shows also that Turkey still has a tremendous influence in Syria. Its hand is still very strong in Syria. A potential, I shouldn't say for normalization with the Assad regime, but at least a potentialization to bring the relationship to an area where there can be transactional dialogue between both parties going forward. So this is definitely going to help Erdogan in the polls. Will it be a major bump? No. But showing that the Turkish president is strong against terror across the border and has the reach to be able to take out high-value targets is a definite positive for him.
All right, I want to listen to some sound now. There have been polls across the board in Turkey. We're going to see some of these young voters. They're talking about things like serious economic crises, the earthquake response, record voter turnout expected this year. Dr. Sinan, Ciddi, I want to talk to you before we take a listen to, actually, let's take a listen to these sound bites now from these young Turks.
We
look at Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu. The man has already ruined the nation in the 2000s. God forbid he becomes president now. He would ruin us. He will drag us into a worse direction. Everyone knows that. I am a Recep Tayyip Erdogan supporter. My first vote is, and even my last vote will be, for Recep Tayyip Erdogan.
My circle generally prefers to remain silent on the issues of election. I prefer not to get into discussions because it is not predictable what will happen. I don't have a clear opinion on the issue, but I hope for the best.
Recep Tayyip Erdogan has to go away. I will vote for the CHP because we can't make a living. Our youth is gone. My little child is 3 years old and crying for food, but we can't afford it. We work under difficult conditions.
So, Dr. Ciddi, I want to ask you, polls predicting record voter turnout because people in Turkey say they're frustrated with the ongoing situation in their country. What do you think?
I mean, Turks are historically known for turning out very highly for national and local elections when they occur. So this doesn't come out as a surprise. But I do hear what you're saying, and I've sort of followed this to the extent that we're expecting close to a 90% turnout of eligible voters, and that would be quite high. But it's not an all-time high. The highest on record is close to about 92% following the promulgation of the 1982 Constitution and back some years ago. But yes, it will still be a high turnout, simply because there is so much at stake. But I would also caution viewers suggesting that the outcome is anything but certain, simply because I think, regardless of what poll you look at, the numbers are extremely close and the race does appear to be neck and neck.
Yusuf, what is the likelihood that the Turkish president not only loses this election, but is able to accept that defeat? These elections happen every 5 years. He said that he's willing to do anything to support the country, raising the currency even. We do know that inflation also rampant in that country. So what can we really expect in terms of campaign promises from him?
Well, first of all, I totally agree that the elections are absolutely neck and neck, and anyone making predictions is only making a guess. To be able to say one party or one candidate will win right now, it's just too close to call. And there's so many wild cards right now, such as what's going to happen with the Kurdish vote, what's going to happen with the expat vote, what's going to happen with the nationalist vote. how the breakdown of the nationalist vote is going to be. These are going to be, I think, the three major stories on election night, who are going to determine the winner and the losers. And it's going to be very important now when we look at the major issues, whether it be the inflation and economy. Yes, the economy has seen better days. Inflation is very high right now, especially when we look at inflation over the past 20 years under the Erdogan administration. It is basically at the highest since the Turkish president has taken over. But we need to understand that his economic policies are waiting for medium to more longer term results right now. And Turkey is going through a period of growing pains. Much of the world is seeing very high level inflation. Turkey is not immune to that high level inflation. Is Turkey's inflation higher? Yes, it is higher because he has been instituting a low interest policy, trying to be able to spur more production, make Turkey more of a powerhouse as the new global supply lines are being built. Now, regarding the elections, what happens if the Turkish president loses? Well, history says that there will be a peaceful transfer of power. There's nothing to assume otherwise. So there's anything otherwise is just sensationalism, and that's it. There will be a peaceful transition of power if he loses, and the Turkish people expect that. That's why there is such high turnout, because people in Turkey believe in the sanctity of the ballot box.
Right. Dr. Ciddi, there were 6 opposition parties and one candidate from them kind of acting as a unity candidate among all of them. But will the support of those 6 opposition parties be enough?
Again, I think it's too close to call at this point. We'll have to see what happens on May 14. There are a plethora of polls out there suggesting, they literally pit Mr. Erdogan and Mr. Kılıçdaroğlu at about the mid 40% range, which is not enough to get them across either candidate across the finish line on May 14, if that's the case, and we'll have to go to the second round. Now, to your question, whether the support of the 6 parties behind Mr. Kılıçdaroğlu will be enough to essentially bolster him, it remains to be seen. But however, one thing should be noted here: when Mr. Erdogan was unable to campaign for the last 2 days, some of his surrogates went on the campaign path to essentially sort of put out his electoral message. Vice President Fuat Oktay went out there, as well as some other individuals. Unfortunately, none of those candidate surrogates were able to sort of project the charismatic leadership that President Erdogan is usually renowned for in terms of campaigning sort of gravitas. But on the other hand, what you're seeing with the 6-party opposition alliance is even if Mr. Kılıçdaroğlu is on one stage, he is supported by other members of the alliance, notably the 2 mayors, one of Istanbul and one Ankara, also taking the stage, either alongside Mr. Kılıçdaroğlu or other provinces. And they are also quite charismatic and appreciated by opposition voters. And so the opposition does seem to have this ability to field more sort of surrogates, which are quote unquote, or possibly perceived to be more charismatic. So they've had a greater opportunity to get the message out of the opposition alliance. Whether that will prevail across the finish line in the presidential vote, we'll have to see.
A lot to expect, a lot to wait for. The election just 2 weeks away. I want to thank you both so much for being with us. Yusuf Edim, TRT's World Editor at Large, joining us from Istanbul, and Dr. Sinan Ciddi. Thank you so much.